Good afternoon. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you happen to be new. I recently watched the video from Snazzy Labs, which Quinn Nelson, I believe is his full name. I don't always care about what he's talking about, but I feel like he does a very, very good job of delivering whatever information the video happens to be about. And this particular one, I did care about it, and honestly, I had this idea in my head prior to watching his. But he did a really, really good job of giving Apple essentially report cards for their individual product categories. And what I was going to do is just talk about products that I currently own or previously owned, or products that I see are available for purchase and just don't particularly think are worthy of anybody really buying. So my roommate recently bought some stuff. I got something new, and I just wanted to share my thoughts and opinions on their entire product line. So as usual, or at least as usual from now on, hopefully, I got my notes. I also am going to have Apple's website pulled up so that way I can reference exactly what I'm talking about, and we can talk. So first category on Apple's website is the Mac. And obviously, we know that the Mac has really come a long way since its Intel days. And even though that was just a short 2 years ago, a little longer than 2 years ago now, Apple Silicon has, I think, exceeded everybody's expectations, even Apple's own expectations. And if I feel like it, I'll include the clip of, I believe it was it? It's not Phil Schiller. Is it? No, it's not Phil. One of the executives talking about it, whoever the Jaws or something. I don't know. But one of the execs talking about how, yeah, the M1 MacBook Air Pro and Mac Mini definitely were phenomenal machines. And that's what I have right here. This is the M1 MacBook Air. I've owned the MacBook Pro as well as the Mac Mini. And something about this one is just, it's great. The typing experience is great. There's no fan, so it's super quiet. And even with the M1, or really all of the Apple Silicon MacBooks that have fans, they're all quiet. And this one is in particularly quiet simply because there's no fan. The typing experience is great. Battery life is phenomenal. Screen quality is what you expect. I mean, obviously, it's not the mini LED that's found in some of the newer products, nor does it have the 120 hertz refresh rate. What is it called? ProMotion. But for what it is, it's a great product. So I'm going to talk about the rest of the items, but I wanted to talk about this one first. One, because I own it. And two, I think it's one of two Macs that you should consider buying. And when I talk about this unit in particular, it's the base model. So 8 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigs of storage. Because the moment you start adding on to that, so whether you want 16 gigs of RAM or 512 gigs of storage or even a terabyte, at that point, I would question, why do you need this Mac? And if you're willing to spend that much money on a MacBook Air, would you rather have just a better computer? So first thing is the M1 MacBook Air is a phenomenal machine. And the only other machine that I'd recommend that you buy is the 14-inch MacBook Pro. Whether it's M1 Pro or the M1 Max, I really wouldn't care. That's up to you. But even buying the base model 14-inch MacBook Pro is, in my opinion, a good deal. And with that model in particular, or really I'd say all of the MacBook Pros, or really almost all the MacBooks at this point, you can constantly find them on sale. So even though I didn't say it when I was talking about this one in particular, buying this machine, this M1 MacBook Air at $1,000, it's overpriced. It was worth it 2 years ago, or really, 2.5 years ago, because I think it came out in maybe, well, let's just say 2 years. It was worth it 2 years ago because I believe when this came out, it was directly replacing the Intel models, and I think those also started at $1,000. So knowing that you could get this, which is a way better machine than an Intel MacBook Air that also was made in 2020, $1,000 was worth it. But 2 years later, it's not worth it. So find it at a discount. Best Buys frequently have them on sale. Probably B&H and maybe some other retailers, Amazon for those of you who shop on Amazon. So buying again the base M1 MacBook Air on sale is what you should consider if you want a thin and light notebook and you don't need a ton of power. Obviously, as I've always pointed out, buying it on sale is good, but if you're able to find it used, it's even better. I purchased mine used sometime earlier, well, sometime in maybe mid 2022, and I think I spent $650 on it, and after tax, it brought it up to about 700 bucks. So buying a used one for $700 after tax, which is $300 less than the new price, and that's of course before tax. So let's say $400 less than the new price. Phenomenal deal. Transitioning to the M1 MacBook Pro, or the M1 Pro MacBook Pro, buying that new at $2,000, an okay price. It's a little newer than this M1 MacBook Air, so still buying it new at that full price, okay. But you should know that it's regularly on sale now, apparently, at Best Buy. I think right now you can get it for $400 off, so for $1,600. And at that point, I think it's a phenomenal deal. And again, just looking at these two models, the reason I'm saying that if you choose to get the MacBook Air, the M1 MacBook Air, it's worth it at the base model on sale, because the moment you add 8 more gigabytes of RAM, that's another 200 bucks. Then if you want 500 gigs of storage, that's another 200 bucks. So we're at $1,400 brand new, but for an additional $200, you can bump up to the 14-inch MacBook Pro, and with that, you get the mini LED screen, you get the ProMotion display, you get more ports, you get a faster, more powerful processor, you get better speakers, you get MagSafe. So for a small fraction more of the overall price of the machine, you just get a way better machine. So, and I guess with that in consideration, base model M1 MacBook Air or 14-inch MacBook Pro. And with that, if you decide to add more to it, great, but also know that it's regularly on sale. So buying it at a discount would definitely be in your advantage. So that's all the notes that I have for this, for the Macs. But the reason I have my my MacBook Air open is because obviously there are a ton of other products that I would not recommend. So first thing that I would not recommend is the M2 MacBook Air. Obviously, I'm not going to say it's a bad machine, because that would be a lie. It's a good machine. It's fine. But as many people pointed out when it was first released, there was that storage speed issue. So the base model of that also is 8 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. But with that 256 gigs of storage, you get a single chip, a single NAND of storage. I think that's the right way to say it. Whereas with the M1 MacBook Air, that 256 gigs of storage is broken up into two separate 128 gigs of storage little chips. And with that, you're able to get faster read and write speeds. But you take that 256 gigs of storage and put it on one chip, you've essentially slowed down, I believe, the reading and writing, or the I don't want to say iflops or whatever, but the access rate for the data that's stored on the drive is now slower. And because of like the unified memory, how things are constantly going back and forth, people who had the M2 MacBook Air in their possession tested it, and even though the chip itself was fast, they were clearly able to show that there was degradation in performance when it came to reading and writing, and other things that require a lot of reading and writing because of that single chip. And then, of course, well, I don't say of course, but I would say the solution at that point would be to get 500 gigs of storage, 512 gigs of storage, and that's another $200 or $300 depending on how you look at it, because sometimes for like at Best Buy's website, the price difference between the base model M2 MacBook Air and the one with 500 gigs or 512 gigs of storage, the difference in price is $300, because not only are they making you get that, or not only are you getting that additional storage, they're then upping or I think adding an additional GPU core, and that additional GPU core is another $100. So even though it should have only been a $200 price difference, it's now a $300 price difference. But now at $1,500, back to my original argument of, well, if the 14-inch MacBook Pro is on sale for $1,600, for an additional $100, you then get 8 more gigs of RAM, a bigger screen, a better screen, more ports, a better processor, or a better SoC. So at that point, yeah, it's like, why would you get the M2 MacBook Air? Like, unless you need something that is super light, not saying that the MacBook Pro is heavy, but unless you need something that is super light, and you want the latest that Apple offers, because if you need something super light, I'd say, well, go ahead and just get the M1 MacBook Air. then yeah, get the M2 MacBook Air. But I personally can't recommend it. And no, I do not own it, so I'm not going to make it sound like I do. I've never owned it. So from what I've seen from reviewers and just from thinking about what Apple has to offer and going to Best Buy and playing around with the different devices. So yeah, can't recommend the M2 MacBook Air because it's too expensive at the base model. So you could save some money by getting the M1 MacBook Air. And then if you choose to add to the base model M2 MacBook Air, you start approaching 14-inch MacBook Pro prices. And at that point, you should spend a little more money, depending on configuration, and go ahead and get the 14-inch MacBook Pro. So cannot recommend the M2 MacBook Air. Next thing, of course, we have the laptop that should not exist, which is the M2 13-inch MacBook Pro. Same storage issues in terms of having a single 256 gigs of storage on a single chip. Bump up, get 512 gigs of storage. That's an additional $200 or $300. I haven't really looked at the pricing, but either way, the base model starts, I believe, at $1,300. So for another $200 or $300, depending on where you're buying it from, you're now literally at 14-inch MacBook Pro prices when that particular device is on sale. And for either $100 more or whatever, or the same price, depending on the configuration, I can imagine, you get just a way better machine. And I don't need to constantly go over it. You get a bigger and better screen. You get ProMotion. You get more ports. You get a more powerful SoC. You get MagSafe. You get better speakers. So you get a more modern design because that 13-inch MacBook Pro still has the Touch Bar, which I've used, and I used it one time and I said, you know what, this might be okay. And then I used it on another machine and I said, no, this is stupid. I just put the function rules back. And I would say, and this is evident from my opinion, that you have for the 13-inch MacBook Pro, which I feel like it's Pro in name only, where you have the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros, and those machines are made for professionals. Of course, you can buy one even if you're not a professional, but those machines truly are geared towards a professional workflow, whereas the 13-inch one, it's named that, but it's really not a pro machine. So, and the 14 and 16-inch Pros don't have the Touch Bar. So the Touch Bar is definitely not a pro feature, and the fact that it's still on a 13-inch version means that obviously Apple recognized, one, people don't want this, and two, it probably inhibits the overall user experience and the, I guess, the efficiency that comes along with having actual function keys. And even if you're not doing anything, out of the ordinary, if I'm just listening to music or watching a video and I want to turn the volume down, just a quick, couple taps of the button, or if I just want to silence it, boom, just a quick thing. But doing anything on that Touch Bar on the 13-inch MacBook Pro, it took more time. It was dumb. Good, I guess, on Apple for trying something new, but they should have killed it when, I don't want to say when they went over to Apple Silicon, but definitely when the M2 MacBook, the 13-inch M2 MacBook Pro came out. Yes, it would have required some retooling or whatever, or they could have just, I guess, made it the way that the M2 MacBook Air looks, but then, with a fan, obviously. And at that point, I would have said this is really just a dumb machine, even more so than it is now. But yeah, definitely cannot recommend the 13-inch M2 MacBook Pro. I did already say I do recommend the 14-inch MacBook Pro, so obviously I'm going to say that. But the 16-inch MacBook Pro, in my opinion, is just too big of a machine. And I want to say, and I don't want to say quote me, but if I had done more research or if I recalled watching videos from the past, the assumption would be that with a bigger chassis, you get more airflow. And I believe it was a Linus Tech Tip video, and I should probably go back and watch it before I make this comment. But I think they said there really wasn't much of an improved performance, even with the added space, for hopefully better thermals. I'm pretty sure the fans are bigger, and maybe there was a slight improvement in performance, like ever so slight. But for the additional cost and the additional heft that comes along with a 16-inch laptop, I don't think it's worth it. And I couldn't recommend it. I mean, it's more expensive. The performance that you gain isn't that much more, just as a result of possibly improved thermals. Yeah, the screen's bigger, but I'm always have always been and will always be, hopefully, a proponent of, well, if you need more screen real estate and you need to be more productive because you need and you know, because you want more space, get a monitor. Okay, take your 13-inch laptop or maybe your 14-inch laptop, connect it to a monitor, and at that point, boom, when you're stationary, you got a big screen. If you travel a lot, they do make travel monitors, you know, whatever. I'm not going to, you know, try to sell anything that I don't really know which ones they are, but the monitor that I have, I've packed in my suitcase and traveled with it. It's not a travel monitor. It's just, you know, you take the stand off, put it down, you know, between clothes, and then, you know, hopefully it's protected. And so far it hasn't been damaged. So yeah, 16-inch MacBook Pro, the possible improved performance as a result of possibly improved thermals, in my opinion, isn't worth the added price or the added heft. So, and of course, you know, it's more expensive, more heavier. So yeah, personally, I can't recommend it. So 16-inch MacBook Pro is a no-go for me. Next category, because that's all the MacBooks. The next category, and I'll try to lump these together. So you have the 24-inch iMac, the Mac Mini, and the Mac Studio. Those are Apple's three desktops. I've owned the Mac Mini, and it really is, when you go from, or you're coming from an Intel Mac Mini or an Intel MacBook Air or MacBook Pro, and then you get the M1 version of that particular machine, it's night and day. When I had that M1 MacBook, sorry, when I had the M1 Mac Mini, I was converting some videos using Handbrake, and doing some video editing using iMovie, which I actually still use the MacBook Air for, which lets you know that it does the job. It's not as fast as other machines, but it does the job. But I never heard the fan. And even though, you know, there's a decent sized fan in the Mac Mini, it was nice to never hear it. So it's a good machine. And I would say that if you need to be stationary for some reason, maybe consider it. But again, it's one of those things of, well, the performance that you get, and you know, maybe I'll put some Geekbench scores up. Maybe, I mean, I probably won't. But if you're like, let's say you're set on M1, you don't want to go to M2. Let's just or M1 Pro or M1 Max. You just want M1 for the price of the Mac Mini. Yes, you get additional ports, but it doesn't come with a keyboard. Doesn't come with a mouse. Actually, am I lying when I say that? No, it doesn't. Yeah. The iMac does. The Mac Mini does not. So it doesn't come with a keyboard. Doesn't come with a mouse. Doesn't come with a screen. So you have to provide all those additional things. So if you're stuck with that, even though I said I couldn't recommend it, because I still don't, but if you want an M1 machine and you want a fan, which is the only real benefit that you get of the Mac Mini compared to the MacBook Air, then get the MacBook Pro. I mean, again, I'm not recommending it, but I would say of the M1 devices, the only one that's really worth getting is the M1 MacBook Air. But if you needed the Mac Mini for some reason, or you needed a fan, then yeah, it's an okay machine. But then I'd still say get the MacBook Pro, because at least now it comes with the screen, the keyboard, the trackpad, and it's portable. And of course, you get your fans, or fan. I don't know if there's one or two in there, but yeah, in 2023, I can't recommend the M1 Mac Mini anymore, because just get a MacBook at that point. Just get a MacBook. The other thing is the 24-inch iMac. It comes with all those things, everything that I just mentioned. So yes, of course, you get the machine, and since it's an all-in-one, it has a screen. It comes with the keyboard. It comes with, I believe, the trackpad. Or does it come with the Magic Mouse? Actually, it might come with all three. Definitely a keyboard and a trackpad or a mouse. I don't remember, but you get all the peripherals that you need. I do know that. But you know, the scandal that came along with that is that, one, the base model only had one fan in it, which everything that you would see on Apple's website, and I believe even when they announced the machines, you know, they had the two fans going, which affects performance. Thermals definitely affect performance. So knowing that in the base model you only get one fan, that's an issue. I think it's a bend SoC, so I think you only get 7 as opposed to 8 cores. So that potentially could be a problem. And then what else? There was one other thing. Oh, I think the base model also only had, I think, 2 USB-C ports. But then if you upgrade, you get 4 ports, and I think like 2 of them might be Thunderbolt or something. I don't know. But the whole point is that you have to make configuration changes to make it a worthy machine. And once you start doing that, yeah, that price starts going up. And then, yes, it's a desktop, so you're stationary. And at that point, I'm like, well, how much are you spending on this? Why don't you just get a 14-inch MacBook Pro? I believe the base model iMac starts at either 13 or 14, I think $1,300. I think $1,299. I'm on the website right now, so I could look for you. So yeah, the base model starts at $1,300, and at that point, yeah, it's like just get a 14-inch MacBook Pro. If you want to stay in the Apple ecosystem, get the 14-inch MacBook Pro and buy yourself a monitor, and that's it. And you don't have to buy the latest and greatest thing, but you get the portability that comes along with the MacBook. You get the power that comes with the M1 Pro or M1 Max chip. You get 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage, and yeah, it just doesn't become, the iMac, in my opinion, doesn't become a worthy thing to purchase. So yeah, I did the 24-inch iMac, another machine I can't recommend. Get a MacBook Pro, 14-inch MacBook Pro, and a monitor. And the last Apple Silicon desktop is the Mac Studio, which is essentially, in terms of size, 2 Mac Mini, or I'd say 2.5 Mac Mini stacked on top of each other. But it has Apple Silicon, so you get the M1 Pro, the M1 Max. Actually, do you get comes with the M1 Ultra? So maybe, yeah, let me take a look at it. I don't think, maybe it doesn't come with the M1 Pro. Maybe it just starts with the M1 Max. Yeah, I think it just starts at the M1 Max, which is good. Right, I'm looking at this. Yeah, M1 Max. So yeah, the M1 Max or the M1 Ultra. And again, this is one of those things where I know I've seen it, and I probably should have watched the video again to refresh my memory. But thinking that, okay, and we're not going to talk about the M1 Ultra because that machine is $4,000, so way more expensive than anything else that I've talked about today. But looking at the base model M1 Max Mac Studio, it has more CPU and GPU cores than the 14-inch MacBook Pro. It also starts at $2,000. And I forget who I was watching, but another YouTuber who purchased one, used it, whatever. But you start testing the thermals and assuming that with more space, even if it has the same chip in it, because the cooling is better, you would expect better performance. And I believe they too showed that even though you would expect it to be better, the overall performance really wasn't that much better, if it was at all, than the 14-inch MacBook Pro. So that's Apple tuning things to make sure that you get a very similar, if not the same experience, if you have this particular chipset. So if you have the M1 Max or the M1 Pro, then boom, this is what you're going to get, regardless of what machine it's in. But then, and of course, I'm assuming they both have fans. But because of that, I would say, well, if you want to spend $2,000 on a machine, yes, the Mac Studio for $2,000, like I said, you get more GPU cores, more CPU cores, at the base model, you start with 32 gigs of RAM instead of 16. But you also have you start at 512 gigs of storage. So it would have been nice if they started you off at a terabyte. That would have been nice for that same $1,000. But at that point, if you're going to pay that same amount of money to get a 14-inch MacBook Pro, like if yes, you might have to bump up if you need more RAM. But the overall experience, I'd say, you get from that 14-inch MacBook Pro, because it's portable, would be way better than a stationary Mac Studio. And you get less ports, and you'd have to determine what's really important. But if we're looking just at the machine, I would say the best thing you can get if you're looking to spend more money is a 14-inch MacBook Pro. Spec it out however you want, and then get a monitor. If you need a mouse, get a mouse. Doesn't have to be a Magic Mouse. In fact, I would recommend it not be a Magic Mouse. And that's it. And then last but not least, there's the Mac Pro, which has not changed over to Apple Silicon yet. So as an Intel machine, I wouldn't recommend it at all. Um, it's been a long time since I watched any Mac Mini, M1 Mac Mini reviews, but I'm fairly confident YouTubers were showing that their maybe not base model Mac Mini, but one of the a Mac Mini, we'll just whatever configuration it is, at let's even just say $1,000. It might have even been less than $1,000, but around $1,000 was competing with their close to maybe $15,000 Mac Studio because it was an Intel machine, and of course that Mac Studio, not Mac, that Mac Pro was drawing way more electricity from the wall, and it's a way bigger machine. Yeah, there's absolutely no reason to buy a Intel Mac Pro, an Intel Mac Pro. So can't even recommend that at all. So in summary, I'm going to only say two machines I can recommend. Base model M1 MacBook Air. Hopefully you can find it on sale. I would definitely recommend you buying it used because that's what I did here. Bought it used. Or 14-inch MacBook Pro. If you need a monitor to connect it to, buy the monitor of your choice. If you need a mouse, buy the mouse of your choice. But the keyboard on the MacBook Pro is really good, so you may not need a secondary keyboard, but if you want, you can buy another keyboard. Frequently, it's on sale at Best Buy. Right now, it's on sale for $400 off, so for $1,600. And at that point, I feel like you got yourself a really, really good machine. So that's it. Two machines. Apple has a bunch of things, starting out as cheap as, I think the Mac Mini starts at, what does it start at? Starts at $700, which, like I said, with this particular machine for $1,000, 2 years ago, yeah, cool, $700. But when I got my Mac Mini a couple years ago, I think I spent $600. No, it was like $525 or something. I think like after tax, it was tax and shipping. It was close to $600, but I'm pretty sure I spent like $525 on it. So buying used things is really in your advantage, and of course, buy it from reputable sellers, so forth and so forth. So again, in summary, wow, 30 minutes. Two machines I could recommend. M1 MacBook Air, base model. 14-inch MacBook Pro, base model preferred, but at the configuration of your choice. Anything else, in my opinion, is a waste of money. I know M2 Pro and M2 Max and probably M2 Ultra chips are around the corner, but they've been around the corner for weeks, if not months. I wouldn't say wait, there's supposedly supposed to be faster, whatever, but it's always like that. Oh, the new machine's going to be better. It's going to be faster. It's going to be more energy efficient. So many things, but well, when is it going to be available for purchase? We don't know. So yeah, if you can get it for $400 off brand new, why not? I had a 14-inch MacBook Pro, but I ended up parting ways with it, and I paid $1,400 for it. And after tax, it was close to $1,600. It was maybe like $1,478 or something, and after tax and shipping, it was about $1,600. So, so yeah, even then, good machine for a reasonable price if we're looking at Apple stuff. So again, I'll say it one more time, and I keep saying it, and I kind of just want to say it one more time so I can stop talking and end this video. But base model M1 MacBook Air, not at retail price, so either on sale or used, or base model 14-inch MacBook Pro, or whatever configuration actually suits your needs. And that's it. Two machines. That's it.